Hello and welcome to today's webinar in support of National Small Business Week and in partnership with the Small Business Administration, SBA, and the Taxpayer Advocate Service, TAS. The Internal Revenue Service presents Small Business, Big Tools, Free Resources from the IRS that will lead to success. I see it's the top of the hour. We're glad you've joined us today. My name is Marcia North, and I'm a Senior Tax Analyst with the Internal Revenue Service. And I will be your moderator for today's webinar, which is slated for approximately 75 minutes. Before we begin, if there is anyone in the audience that is with the media, please send an email to the address on this slide. Be sure to include your contact information and the news publication you're with. Our media relations and stakeholder liaison staff will assist you and answer any questions you may have. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded for future posting. We hope you won't experience any technology issues, but if you do, this slide shows helpful tips and reminders. We've posted a technical help document you can download from the Materials section on the left side of your screen. It provides the minimum system requirements for viewing this webinar, along with some best practices and quick solutions. If you completed and passed your system check and you're still having problems, please try one of the following. Close the screen where you're viewing the webinar and relaunch it. Click on Settings on your browser viewing screen and select HLS. You should have received today's PowerPoint in a reminder email, but if not, no worries. You can download it by clicking on the Materials drop-down arrow on the left side of your screen, as shown on this slide. To receive our survey at the end of the presentation, you need to have your pop-up blocker disabled. We've also included several technical documents, and that will describe how you can disable your pop-up blockers based on the browser you're using. You'll find that using the Materials tab. Closed captioning is available for today's presentation. If you're having trouble hearing the audio through your computer speakers, please click the Closed Captioning drop-down arrow located on the left side of the screen. This feature will be available throughout the webinar. If you have a topic-specific question today, please submit it by clicking the Ask Question drop-down arrow to review the text box. Type your question in the text box and click Send. Very important, please do not enter any sensitive or taxpayer-specific information in the text box. Again, welcome. Before we move along with our session, let me make sure you're here in the right place. Today's webinar is in support of National Small Business Week, and in partnership with SBA and TAS, IRS presents Small Business, Big Tools, Free Resources from the IRS that will lead to success. This webinar is scheduled for approximately 75 minutes from the top of the hour. Thank you for joining us for this special webinar in recognition of National Small Business Week. We are here today to recognize your contributions and all that you do as a small business owner to support our economy. To honor your hard work, we've put together this special session to help you better understand your tax responsibilities while learning how to support your employees with a variety of helpful tax resources. During today's webinar, you'll learn about IRS free tools available to help you manage your business taxes. We'll also share practical tips and support for how to handle tax issues as they arise. You'll also hear from Michelle Shem and Robert from the Small Business Administration. You'll also hear from Disner C. Alexander, or District of Columbia Taxpayer Advocate, who will discuss ways the SBA and IRS can help you speak up when you run into issues with federal agencies, including how to submit feedback and concerns. Finally, we'll share helpful tips and you can use all year long to stay organized and get ready for the next tax season. Now, let us introduce our first speaker. We are joined by Jeffrey Latessa from the Internal Revenue Service. Jeffrey Latessa works for the IRS in the Communication and Liaison Division as a stakeholder liaison in Lowell, Massachusetts. Jeffrey joined the IRS in 2008. Prior to joining the Communications and Liaison Division, he worked as a lead case advocate with a taxpayer advocate service and in identity theft victim assistance. Jeffrey has a bachelor's degree in communication from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst and a Juris Doctor from the University of Connecticut School of Law. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to begin the presentation. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Marcia. And thank you for attending today to everyone in the audience. We have a lot to cover, so we'll get started. Whether you're new or an existing small business, you can find many useful resources on irs.gov/smallbiz. Let's begin with an overview of some of those tools and resources. When you go to irs.gov/smallbiz, you'll be taken to the Small Business and Self-Employed Tax Center. This page has many helpful links and resources that you may find useful. I realize that the text on this slide may be hard to read, but the real goal is to give you an overview of the page. At the top right-hand side of the screen, you can choose your preferred language, view popular links on topics like finding information on the standard mileage rate, which is currently 70 cents per mile, or you can apply for an employer identification number, which is like a Social Security number for a business. The IRS uses the 9-digit number to identify your business for tax purposes. You need an EIN if you have employees, operate as a corporation or partnership, or meet other specific criteria. There's also a link to business tax accounts where you can pay taxes or get a free summary of your business tax returns using the transcript feature. I'll be talking about this online tool later in the presentation. You can also obtain information on self-employment taxes, access IRS forms and publications, and you can even learn how to electronically submit employment tax returns like the Form 941, Employer's Quarterly Federal Tax Return, or Form 940, Employer's Annual Federal Unemployment Tax Return. Generally, you have two options. You can either purchase software to file the return yourself, or you can select a tax professional from our authorized IRS e-file provider locator service so that the preparer would complete the return for you. This site will also take you directly to the Small Business Administration Ombudsman's page should you need assistance from them. You'll be hearing directly from Michelle Shimp of the SBA during the last half of this presentation. Now, scrolling to the middle of the page, to your left, you'll find that there's information for different types of businesses, such as self-employed or independent contractors. Also, be sure to check out the middle section under Preparing Your Taxes, where you can find details about tax credits, deductions, record keeping, and more. Now, moving all the way to your right, you'll see the Filing/Paying Your Taxes. Scrolling to the bottom row of the page, you can see details on every stage of your business, from starting a business to closing and everything in between. There's also general topics that include links to an index on multiple subjects. And finally, in the lower right corner, there's online learning with links to videos, tax workshops, webinars, and more. In addition to the main Small Business and Self-Employed Tax Center on irs.gov, there are also industry-specific tax centers. One example is the Gig Economy Tax Center, which is shown here. If you have a side hustle, like driving for a rideshare company, renting out a room through a rental service online platform, or working for a company that outsources errands and tasks, then this section is especially helpful. Another resource to check out is publication 5369, Gig Economy and Your Taxes, which is a one-page resource to help gig workers understand their reporting requirements. And just a reminder, money or income earned through the gig economy is taxable, even if the work is part-time or short-term. IRS.gov's small business pages map out the entire life cycle of a business and its tax implications. There are 4 sections that begin with starting a business. Here you'll find basic tax information for new business owners, along with a checklist to help you make important early business decisions. Next, there's a section on business structure. This section helps you decide what type of business entity to set up, like a sole proprietorship, partnership, or corporation, and explains which tax forms you'll need to file based on that structure. The operating a business section provides useful tools and tips. It shows you how to apply for an employer identification number, or EIN, and how to keep good records and pay your taxes properly. And if you ever need to close your business, there's a section to guide you through the process from a federal tax point of view. It explains how to handle your final employee paperwork, what forms to file, what records to keep, and what steps to take to officially close the business. Many of the resources I just shared are also available in publication 5801, Tools and Resources for Small Businesses. If you're just getting started with a new business, you may also want to look at publication 5557, which is a helpful guide for new small business owners. And if you're a tax professional, business educator, or community partner joining us today, we encourage you to share these 2 publications with your clients via your website. They're great resources to help others better understand their business tax responsibilities. Now let's talk about 2 tax credits that may be available for your business. The first is the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, or WOTC. This credit is for employers who hire people from any of 10 specific groups, such as veterans or long-term unemployed individuals. It's available through December 31st, 2025. To see if your business qualifies, take a look at publication 5642. It's a short 1-page flyer with simple details. The second credit is the Commercial Clean Vehicle Credit. This credit began in 2023 and is available through December 31st, 2032. If your business places a qualifying clean vehicle into service, you could get up to $7,500 for each qualifying commercial vehicle under 14,000 pounds, or $40,000 for all other vehicles. The credit amount depends on the vehicle type and cost. For example, the credit limit is the lesser of 15% or 30% of basis in the vehicle, depending on its type or the incremental cost of the vehicles. There's no limit on how many vehicles you can claim, but to get it, you must file Form 8936. For more information, check out publication 5724B or publication 5886, Clean Energy Tax Incentives for Businesses. Now let's take a moment to talk about Form 1099-K. This form is used to report payments you might receive through a third-party settlement organization or platforms like PayPal, Venmo, or a credit card company. You might get a 1099-K if you sell goods or services online or if your business accepts digital payments. For tax year 2024, you'll get a Form 1099-K if you made over $5,000 through these platforms. Starting in 2025, the threshold drops to $2,500. By 2026, the threshold will go down to $600, which lines up with the original rule under the American Rescue Plan. So beginning in 2026, if you receive more than $600 in payments for goods and services through a third-party app, you'll get a 1099-K statement. It's also important to know that personal transactions, like sending someone money for a birthday gift, splitting the cost of dinner, or paying a roommate for a household bill, don't count and should not be reported on a Form 1099-K. Another key point, these rules are based on the total amount of the payments you receive, not how many transactions you have. And even if you don't get a 1099-K form, if you earned money from selling goods or services, you still need to report it as income on your tax return. If you'd like to learn more, visit irs.gov/1099-K or check out publication 5951, which explains the facts and clears up some common myths. Now, did you know that the IRS has its own YouTube channel? It does, and it's a great place to find helpful videos, including a playlist just for small businesses. These videos are short, easy to follow, and full of useful tips. So take a look, and if you find them helpful, you can subscribe for free so that you can stay updated. Now let's take a moment to talk about choosing a tax professional to help you meet your tax obligations while ensuring you obtain all the business credits and deductions that you're entitled to. We understand that running a business is extremely time-consuming. For that reason, some business owners prefer to get a tax professional to help them with their tax records and filing returns. There are a lot of preparers out there with different credentials, such as enrolled agents, certified public accountants, and attorneys. It's important to remember that whoever you choose, you're still legally responsible for the information on the tax return. You do want to make sure that you use a reputable preparer. Let's review some points you need to be aware of. You want to avoid any preparer who claims that they can obtain larger refunds than others. You want to avoid preparers who base their fees on the amount of the refund. You also want to avoid paid preparers who won't sign the tax return or won't give you a copy for your records. You'd never want to sign a blank tax return. Never want to sign a completed form without reviewing it and making sure that you understand each line item on the return itself. You want to consider whether the preparer will still be available to answer your questions about the return months and even years after it was filed. Now, the IRS has a registration and certification process for preparers. To ensure that you're working with an honest and reputable preparer, make sure that the paid preparer has a valid IRS Preparer Tax Identification Number, which is also known as a PTIN. All preparers, whatever their professional designation, must have a PTIN. You can find more tips on irs.gov by simply typing "choosing a preparer" in the search box. You can also check out publication 5924, Tips to Help Small Businesses Choose a Tax Preparer. Now let's explore the different types of tax preparers and some of their qualifications. An enrolled agent, or an EA, is a person who's earned the privilege of representing taxpayers before the IRS. They've passed a comprehensive 3-part exam covering individual and business tax returns and must complete 72 hours of continuing education courses every 3 years. Enrolled agents have unlimited practice rights to represent you before the IRS on any tax matter that they can handle. Certified public accountants, or CPAs, are licensed by state boards. They've passed the CPA exam and meet specific education and experience requirements. CPAs can represent clients before the IRS and offer a range of accounting services. Attorneys are licensed to practice law by state courts. They can represent you before the IRS concerning legal matters, including tax disputes. Now, annual filing season program participants are tax preparers who aren't attorneys, CPAs, or EAs, but have completed voluntary continuing education through the IRS program that's offered each year. And that program is the annual filing season program. Participants receive a record of completion and have limited practice rights. This means that they may only represent clients whose returns they prepared and signed, but only before revenue agents, customer service representatives, and similar IRS employees, including the Taxpayer Advocate Service. They cannot represent clients whose returns they did not prepare, and they cannot represent clients regarding appeals or collection issues, even if they did prepare the return in question. Now, other PTIN holders are preparers with a valid Preparer Tax Identification Number, but no professional credentials and who haven't participated in the annual filing season program. They can prepare tax returns but can't represent you or other clients before the IRS. To help you find a qualified tax professional, the IRS offers a searchable directory. The directory includes EAs, CPAs, attorneys, and annual filing season program participants, and you can search by name, city, state, or zip code. To locate the directory on irs.gov, you would just want to search for the phrase Directory of Federal Tax Return Preparers in the search box. Now let's discuss another related and important topic, avoiding misinformation and tax scams. In today's digital age, it's easy to come across tax advice on social media or from individuals promising big refunds. Unfortunately, some of this information can be misleading or outright false. For instance, we've seen cases where promoters encourage small business owners to claim the fuel tax credit, which is typically reserved for off-highway business and farming use and not for most taxpayers. These promoters might even fabricate fictitious documents or fuel receipts and then charge you a hefty fee for a credit that you're not eligible for. So protect yourself. Be cautious of anyone guaranteeing large tax refunds or suggesting credits that seem too good to be true. Always verify tax information with trusted sources like the IRS website. If you suspect an abusive tax scheme, abusive promoter, or fraudulent tax return preparer, you should use the online form 14242 to report suspected abusive tax promotion or preparers. You can submit it online, or you can also mail or fax a copy of the form 14242, to the IRS Lead Development Center, and you'll want to include any supporting information with that when you send it to the IRS. Now let's talk about safeguarding your business against tax scams and cyber threats. The Internal Revenue Service and the Security Summit partners urge businesses to remain vigilant against cyber attacks aimed at stealing their customers' personal information and other business data that can help identity thieves. One common tactic is phishing, and that's sending emails that appear to be from a trusted source, like the IRS, to trick your employees into clicking harmful links or sharing confidential information. Now remember, the IRS will never initiate contact via email, text, or social media to request personal or financial information. Be cautious of emails claiming to be from the IRS and report suspicious messages to phishing@irs.gov, and that's phishing with a PH. Another prevalent scam is the W-2 scam. In this scam, a fraudster poses as a company executive and emails staff requesting copies of employee W-2 forms. Now, these forms contain sensitive information that can be used to file fraudulent tax returns. So to protect your business, you want to install and regularly update security software, back up important files securely, use strong, unique passwords for all devices and accounts, implement multi-factor authentication, encrypt sensitive data to prevent unauthorized access. If you suspect that your business has fallen victim to a data breach, for example, you receive an IRS notice about a tax return that you didn't file, or a notice about a W-2 filed with the Social Security Administration that your business didn't file, then it's important to act promptly. And here's what you can do. You want to complete and submit a Form 14039B, a business identity theft affidavit, to report the issue to the IRS. You can visit the IRS's Identity Theft Central for more information and resources. For additional guidance, you can also refer to Publication 5461C. Businesses should watch out for tax-related scams and implement safeguards. And by staying informed and implementing these safeguards, you can help protect your business from potential threats. Now that we've covered how to protect your business from scammers, let's shift our focus to planning ahead for the upcoming tax season. It's never too early to start preparing your taxes. By staying proactive, you can avoid last-minute stress and ensure that everything's in order. As a small business owner, it's important to understand your unique tax responsibilities. This includes knowing about making estimated tax payments, which are quarterly payments made throughout the year on income that's not subject to withholding. Making these payments can help you avoid penalties and manage your cash flow more effectively. When it's time to make a payment, you have a few easy options. One is direct pay, which is free and a secure service that allows you to pay directly from your bank account without needing to sign up or register. And another option is the Electronic Federal Tax Payment System, or EFTPS, which also lets you pay online. One of the best ways to get ready for next filing season is by keeping accurate and complete records. And here's something that can help your team too. Encourage your employees to use the IRS Tax Withholding Estimator, which is on irs.gov. It's a handy tool that helps them figure out how much tax to withhold from their paychecks. When they use it, it can also save you time as an employer, especially when it comes to filling out Forms W-4 and making payroll adjustments. With more accurate estimates, you're less likely to run into surprises at tax time. So remember, good record keeping isn't just smart, it's a big part of keeping your business and your team on track all year long. Now let's talk about something that many small business owners have to deal with, and that's filing 1099 forms. If your business needs to file 10 or more information returns, like the 1099-K, which we discussed earlier, then you're required to file them electronically. This also goes for W-2 forms, which are sent to the Social Security Administration. The good news is that the IRS has made it easier to e-file these forms through the Information Returns Intake System, or IRS. With IRS, you can e-file any 1099 form, make corrections, and request automatic extensions for Forms 1099. After you submit, you can download copies for your records, and you'll get a confirmation from the IRS within 48 hours. Now, there are two ways to e-file with IRS. First, you can use the IRS Taxpayer Portal. This free web-based option lets you e-file up to 100 returns at a time. You can enter them manually, or you can upload a .csv file with a downloadable template. You can download payee copies for distribution, and you can save your issuer information for next time. To use the IRS Taxpayer Portal, you'll need an IRS Transmitter Control Code, or a TCC, and this is a 5-digit code that identifies your business in the system. You can apply for an IRS Transmitter Code, or a TCC, at irs.gov. The second way to e-file with IRS is through the Application to Application, or A2A. If you're using a third-party software or developing your own, ATA allows you to e-file thousands of returns at once, up to 100 megabytes per file. You can find step-by-step instructions to get started by typing IRS at irs.gov. So whether you're filing just a few 1099 returns or thousands, there's an efficient, secure way to do it, and it's all right at your fingertips at irs.gov or by checking out publication 5731. Before I wrap up and turn the floor back over to our moderator, I'd like to mention one last helpful tool, and that's the Business Tax Account, which I mentioned earlier. It's a newer feature that the IRS launched just last year. If you're a sole proprietor, this tool lets you easily manage your business taxes online. You can view your business information and account balance for Forms 941, 2290, and more. You can make same-day payments or schedule payments in advance. You can see your full payment history. You can access tax transcripts compliance reports and tax certificates, and you can even check notices and letters issued from the IRS to you. If you're a partnership or an S corporation, you can also see your business information that's on file with the IRS, view all filed tax returns, check any outstanding balances, make payments, and view your payment history just like a sole proprietor. Now, we're continuing to add new enhancements to make business tax accounts a true one-stop shop for small business tax management. That said, a limited liability company or an LLC that files a Schedule C can't access business tax account just yet. Also important to know that to access any of the IRS online accounts, and that includes individual accounts as well as the business accounts, you'll need to have an ID.me account first. Once that step is complete, you're all set to log in and manage your taxes easily. The system is very intuitive. However, if you need more detailed step-by-step guidance, you can check out the IRS February 2025 webinar titled New Features for Tax Pros, Do Business Faster and Easier, which is online at the IRS YouTube channel, which we mentioned earlier. This webinar will give you detailed information on individual and business tax accounts. Now, Marcia, I'll turn it back over to you now.
Wow, thank you, Jeff. That's a lot of great information. Next, we're joined by Disner C. Alexander from the D.C. Local Taxpayer Advocate Office. Disner is currently serving as a local taxpayer advocate in Washington, D.C. Prior to coming to TAS, Disner worked for the Washington, D.C. Office of Tax and Revenue in the Collection Division as a revenue officer. This he did for 10 years. He was hired by TAS in 2016 as a group manager and is currently working passionately to advocate and educate taxpayers in the region of tax responsibilities to prevent problems and emerging issues. Remember, the Taxpayer Advocate Service is an independent organization within the IRS to ensure every taxpayer is treated fairly and that they know and understand their rights as a taxpayer. Their advocates can help taxpayers if they're having problems that they're not able to resolve on their own with the IRS. Join us in welcoming Disner to the IRS webinar team. It's all yours, Disner.
As Marcia was saying, I'm with the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate Services. By law, TAS is required to have at least one local taxpayer advocate in each state. However, we currently have more than one local taxpayer advocate office in larger states such as California, Texas, New York. Because of population shift over time and different taxpayer issues emerges, TAS periodically revisits its geographic locations and the allocations of staffing. Under Section 7803 of the Internal Revenue Code, the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate has 4 statutory missions. 1, we assist the taxpayers in resolving problems with the IRS. 2, we identify areas in which taxpayers have problems in their dealings with the IRS. 3, to the extent possible, propose changes in the administrative practices of the IRS to mitigate problems. And 4, we identify potential legislative changes which may be appropriate to mitigate such problems. What we do. TAS works very diligently with the Small Business Administration and SBA Enforcement Ombudsman. We do not replace or reduce the activities of the Ombudsman or similar offices. We just work together hand in hand. We help taxpayers where systems fail to operate or intended or efforts fail to resolve the problem within the IRS. We do an annual report to Congress, most litigated issues encountered by taxpayers. And we protect the taxpayers' rights. Believe it or not, taxpayers have rights. We work in conjunction with the Supports the Low Income Office, the Ombudsman's Taxpayer Advocacy Panel, and we'll share more on why and how this works a little later. How we advocate. Case advocate is where we work with the taxpayers that meet this general criteria to assist them in resolving account-related issues. We provide free services to all eligible taxpayers, including individual taxpayers, businesses, nonprofits, and more. There are no income limits for eligibility. I'm going to repeat that one more time. There are no income limits for eligibility. TAS provides free service for all eligible taxpayers. Free service includes individual taxpayers, authorized representative business, and exempt organizations. There's no limitations. Although TAS is a part of the IRS, we are an independent organization. The Internal Revenue Service Restructuring and Reform Act of 1998, amended Internal Revenue Code, Section 7803 and 7811. This act was created the position of a national NTA and strengthened the taxpayer advocacy. In other words, the taxpayers may be eligible for TAS if they have a tax problem they haven't been able to resolve on their own, or they believe the IRS procedures just isn't working as it should. TAS accepts cases in 4 categories: economic, systematic, the best interests of the taxpayer, and public policy. Once you refer a case to TAS, we will assign a case to the case advocate. The case advocate will review the issue in question, update you with timely progress reports, and work with the IRS to resolve your issues. We will give the issue in question an independent and impartial evaluation, and we may also consider it for systematic advocacy analysis. Once you determine a case meets the TAS case criteria and you cannot resolve the case or at least take the initial steps towards resolution, you can fill out Form 911, and that's basically requesting for taxpayer advocate services assistance. Or you can get a letter from the SBA Ombudsman in the form of a Small Business Fairness Act comment package that they will send to TAS. We also have a toll-free number, 877-777-4778. We also have inquiries that are referred by our congressional offices. What I'm going to do is tell you about a small business. They received a notice from the IRS. The notice informed the taxpayer of a balance due for Form 941, Employees' Quarterly Federal Tax Return, for the period ending June, in the amount of $22,149.89. Taxpayer requested abatement of the penalties under the first-time abatement provision for a reasonable cause, and for some reason the IRS was not listening to that, or they weren't complying with the taxpayer or the business. When TAS got involved, we were able to get all of that abated for failure to file penalty, failure to deposit, failure to pay, totaling up to $22,149. That's just one of the things that we can do for you at TAS IRS. Now, if you qualify for assistance, there are a number of ways you can request our help. You can go online, the Taxpayer Advocate IRS, and you can fax or call us up personally, and we'll be able to assist you in any way we know how. If you want to know more about Taxpayer Advocate Services, we have several avenues that you can go. Go online to Taxpayer Advocate IRS. You can go into the ES Taxpayer Advocate, or you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter. Please help us spread the word. Tell your friends and family or anyone who might need help with the IRS or their federal taxes. TAS is here to assist you. Thanks a lot. Now turn this back over to Marcia. Marcia, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Disner, for that valuable information of the local taxpayer advocate, which I believe you mentioned earlier works with our next guest, the Office of the National Ombudsman. Robert Bowen is the current National Ombudsman and Assistant Administrator for Regulatory Enforcement Fairness. He's also the inventor of Button Helper, a dressing aid for veterans with traumatic brain and spinal cord injuries. Robert previously served at Georgetown University as an expert on call, as well as mentor in the Summer Launch Incubator. Michelle Shim is a senior advisor for the Office of the National Ombudsman with extensive experience managing U.S. government organizations to support job creation, innovation, competitiveness, and economic growth. Ms. Shimp holds an MA in Latin American Studies from the University of California at Berkeley and a BA in International Affairs from George Washington University. Join us in welcoming Ombudsman Robert Bowen and Michelle Shimp to the IRS webinar team. It's all yours, Robert.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. I'm the National Ombudsman, Robert Bowen. My office was created by the Small Business Regulatory Enforcement Fairness Act of 1996. I came to this from a small business I founded and ran for well over a decade. So I've seen many sides of compliance. My office works with small businesses, nonprofits, and even municipalities to resolve disputes they have with federal departments and agencies where they feel they've experienced excessive or unfair regulatory enforcement. So they reach out to us. We assign a case manager who works with that business, conducts a high-level review with the respective agency and department, and then together come up with a resolution or at the very least a response to better understand what happened. Handing it to you, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Robert, and also thanks to the IRS for organizing this great event and especially for providing us a chance to celebrate National Small Business Week. This is a great opportunity to raise awareness of the assistance offered by the Small Business Administration and the Office of the National Ombudsman. But I want to particularly thank all of you, the small businesses participating in this event. You're the drivers of our economy. You're amazing job creators and innovators. And on behalf of the entire SBA leadership team, please know that we appreciate all that you do. When people think of the SBA, they typically don't know that in addition to the loans we offer or the federal contracting programs or disaster assistance, we also help small businesses with regulations, advocating for small businesses during rulemaking, and resolving small business issues with the enforcement. We work super closely with Disner Alexander and his team at the Office of Taxpayer Advocate, and also with our IRS colleagues to help small businesses related to tax regulations and enforcement. And I also want to be sure everyone knows that we serve as a bridge to all federal agencies. See the long list at the right, and even more than are listed there we can help with. As Robert mentioned, Congress created the Office of the National Ombudsman, and our purpose is to assist small businesses that believe that they've experienced excessive or unfair regulatory enforcement actions. It includes repetitive audits, investigations, fines, penalties, retaliation, or other enforcement actions as well. And it was the Small Business Regulatory Enforcement Fairness Act, or SBREFA, that also requires other federal agencies to collaborate with us to provide the impartial and credible review that small business complaints and concerns deserve. How does this work? Step one, you as a small business or someone representing you, such as a lawyer or trade association, submit a comment, which is typically a complaint, to the Office of the National Ombudsman. I'll provide the contact information later, but all that we require initially is that you fill in a simple form telling us about your situation. We will then need to work with you to compile the substantiating documentation that helps us to make your case. Step two, my office then engages the relevant federal agency in writing regarding the complaint. And we have points of contact across entire federal agency space who work with us to resolve cases. Disner already mentioned that they receive letters through us, and we collaborate closely. So you could come to either of us if you had a tax-related issue. Step three in our letter, my office asks the federal agency to conduct a high-level review of your case as is required by law. We ask that they respond in 30 days. Sometimes it's quicker, but a more complicated case can take longer. Finally, the final step for you is that my office sends you the federal agency's response, which contains the results of the high-level review. Step 5 is just so that you know, to incentivize federal agencies to collaborate, my office is required to send an annual report to Congress that rates federal agency responsiveness to small business concerns. I'm going to provide you with 2 common examples of complaints we've successfully resolved. The first is a federal contractor to the Navy. We recently had this business come to us because they had completed their contract and submitted their invoice to the Navy, but after 40 days, they were frustrated that it was still unpaid. They filed a comment with the National Ombudsman, and we requested that Navy conduct a high-level review. As a result of this review, the obstacle that was holding up the payment was identified and resolved. It was an erroneous payment method associated with the contract that needed to be changed. Within 30 days of coming to us, the business was paid. And here's a nice quote from the owner. We often find that we can help businesses if the federal government is not paying a contract or delayed in payment or a request for equitable adjustment is languishing. Another example involves the Small Business Administration. In this case, the small business had received a disaster loan, thought that their payments were up to date, and were extremely alarmed to be notified that their loan was in default and was being transferred to the Treasury Department for collection. So they came into us noting that they could show discrepancies in payment date from material on SBA's loan website. And they said they tried unsuccessfully to resolve the issue through customer service personnel. So my office worked with the business to substantiate their complaint. We sent it to our counterparts in SBA, determined that the loan would be recalled from collection and returned to regular servicing status. And again, a great quote from the business that underscores when regular customer service fails to resolve an issue, please feel free to come to us. In addition to resolving complaints, more recently, Congress has required our office to provide assistance to help small businesses to avoid violations and comply with federal regulations, putting compliance guidance into a one-stop shop on SBA.gov. I'll provide all the links at the end. Many small businesses do not know that for nearly every regulation that has a significant economic impact on a substantial number of small businesses, federal agencies are required to provide compliance guidance for small businesses. And then the National Ombudsman is required to make those guides available on SBA.gov in a one-stop shop easily found by you. So we have hundreds of compliance guides, and you could also easily download an Excel spreadsheet for simple searching. Finally, a priority of the Trump administration and SBA's administrator, Kelly Loeffler, is cutting burdensome regulations that hold back small businesses from competing in the marketplace and realizing their full potential to grow into the business powerhouses that drive our economy. Therefore, we've established a red tape hotline. If you have a concern with a regulation, you can make your voice heard. And again, this is not just about SBA. This could be relevant to any federal agency. This information is going to be used and will be used to engage with the federal agencies and advocate for change based on input from you and other small businesses. So to conclude, and if you want to take a screenshot of this, you've got all of the contact information you need to get assistance from the resources we've described today. File a comment if you have a particular complaint. Find compliance guidance if there's regulation that concerns you, or simply call or email my office if you have questions. You should also check out SBA's free or low-cost counseling and training near you. My final takeaway is simple. Put us to work for you. We greatly appreciate you, wish you a very happy National Small Business Week, and look forward to answering your questions. Turning this back over to Marcia to conclude.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Hello again, it's me, Marcia Norris, and I'll be moderating the question and answer session. Before we start the Q&A, I want to thank everyone for attending today's presentation in support of National Small Business Week. And in partnership with SBA and TAS, IRS presents Small Business Big Tools, free resources from the IRS that will lead to success. Jeff, Disner, and Michelle are staying with us to answer your questions. Question for Jeff. Where would you recommend starting out if I am just starting a new business and want to make sure I am keeping on top of my taxes?
Thanks, Marcia. And yeah, that's a really good question. So the first place I would start would be the IRS website. I talked about it a little bit earlier, irs.gov/smallbiz. That would be the best place to start for a small business owner. There's a lot of information gathered together on that page. For someone just starting out, what I would recommend doing is clicking on the tab for starting a business. And that covers things that are going to be relevant to a new small business owner. So it'll cover things like how to apply for an EIN, how to choose an appropriate business structure. So you would decide at that point, do I want to be a sole proprietor? Do I want to be an S corporation? Am I a partnership? Things like that. There's also information on record keeping, which is very, very important. There's a dedicated record keeping page. In addition to the IRS web pages, which tend to cover information more generally, there are some publications that go into more depth. There's publication 5801, which is tools and resources for small businesses. There's also a publication I mentioned earlier, publication 5557, which is a guide for new small business owners. Those are both available at irs.gov. You can print them out, but for those publications, I think they're especially helpful electronically because they contain a lot of links to other resources, for the most part, other pages on irs.gov, but they cover things that would really be relevant to a small business owner. One other thing would be the IRS publications that cover specific topics in more depth. So if you have questions about depreciation, for example, or record keeping or choosing an accounting method, there are dedicated publications for each of those topics, and they go into the topics in more depth, maybe more depth than you would need just starting out, but that's something else to keep in mind as well. And I hope that answers your question. I'll hand things back over to Marcia.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was very, very impactful. Thank you. Next question is for Disner. Someone wants to know, when should I call my taxpayer advocate?
Oh, that's a great question. What you should do is, if you have not got a resolution through the IRS, say if you call the IRS first and you try to get a resolution and they were unable to help you or unable to go where you need to go, you can always give TAS a phone call, give us a call, or shoot us an email, or do a 911 form and send it to us. And then what we'll do is look into it and give you a call with one of our case advocates.
Great. Thank you so much, Disner. Thanks a lot. Another one for you, Jeff. Someone wants to know, do I need to get an EIN?
Another good question. So there are some circumstances where you'll need to get an EIN. On irs.gov, there's a page dedicated to EINs, and it'll explain circumstances where you're required to get an EIN. If you have employees, you would need an EIN. If you operate a partnership, an LLC, or a corporation, you would need to get an EIN. Not all businesses will need to get an EIN, though. One thing that I would like to mention is that even if you're not required to get an EIN, the IRS will give you one. And you can apply for an EIN through the IRS website. It's free, and you'll get the EIN instantaneously. And even if you're not required to have an EIN, there may be some reasons to get one that would benefit you. You may need it for banking purposes. You may need it for state tax purposes. To answer the question, as a small business owner, there's a good chance that you'll be required to get an EIN if you meet certain criteria. Even if you're not required to get an EIN, you can get one through irs.gov. It may benefit you to do so for other reasons. Not much effort to get one. It's free, and you can get it online instantaneously. Hopefully that was helpful. I'll hand things back over to Marcia.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you so much. We have some questions for SBA Michelle. I'm just getting my business started. Is there any advice for a first-time business owner that you can give?
Thanks so much. Again, great question. I think it's very important for experienced, but especially first-time business owners, to make sure that they've really taken advantage of the free services offered by the Small Business Administration. We have mentors and counselors who can be assigned to work with you for free. In many cases, we can match your company's area of expertise with a mentor or counselor who has similar expertise. You know, there are actually, if you're interested in exporting, the Small Business Administration offers grants to exporters in order to pursue marketing opportunities overseas. A lot of folks know about SBA loans, and even though you're a first-time business owner and maybe not quite ready to seek money from the SBA, you can start to do the work to make yourself loan worthy a year or two from now as you hit the more expansion phase of your work. We can connect you into different tools, resources, journeys, online training, in-person training, plug you in with your local SBA district office and our full network of resource providers. So please do take a look at everything that we have to offer, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact our office as well.
Wow, Michelle, that is some all-around resources there at the SBA. Thank you for that. That's a lot. I'm sure during Small Business Week we'll have a lot of people looking for some resources, and they can find it right there at the SBA. Thank you. How about another question I see coming in here? This one is for Disner. Someone wants to know, how fast does the tax advocate work if their case is accepted? How fast can you get working on their case?
Well, the question is, what happens if my case is accepted by TAS? If your case is accepted, it will be assigned to a case advocate, and what they'll do is they will contact you to discuss with you the plan to resolve your issues. Now, because of our backlog, it takes anywhere between, I would say, 10 to 15 days for us to get in contact with you. Now, depending on the tax issue complexities, it could take a couple of weeks to a couple of months. It depends on the issue and what we need to do to resolve your issues. Again, we will be in contact with the IRS and in contact with the taxpayer to see how we can resolve the issues.
Great, Disner. Do you know how fast the cases are worked? First in, first out? How does that work?
On a regular basis, yes, it is. It's worked on a first in, first out. Some cases, I said, the complexities could be a little bit lengthy. So what we'll do is we'll work it from stem to stem, whatever your issues are, and we won't let you go until the issues have been resolved or that we come to an amicable position on that. So it could take some time, depending on the complexities of the issues.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Disner. We have some other questions. Jeff, here's a question for you. How do I choose the right type of business structure?
Okay, yeah, so the IRS website has information on the 4 main types of business structures, which would be sole proprietorships, partnerships, S corporations, and C corporations. There's also a page for limited liability companies, or LLCs. Each of those 4 main types of business structures, plus the LLC, have their own dedicated page. And each page gives a little bit of a description of the different types of business structures are like, and also the forms that you'd be required to file. If you were a sole proprietor, for example, where you'd be filing a Form 1040 and a Schedule C, or if you form an S corporation, you'd be filing the Form 1120S. So there is a lot of information for federal tax purposes about business structures on the IRS website. There's a page for each of those different types of business structures. There's also a link on irs.gov to the SBA's website, which provides information on choosing a business structure. which would be helpful as well. And you also may want to check with other people in your business community to see how they've organized their businesses and the pros and cons to choosing different business structures. But as far as federal taxes, I would start at irs.gov. There's one page for each of the main business structures, and you should get the basics on those pages. And I'll hand things over to Marcia now.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a great start for business structure right there at irs.gov. Let's see here. The questions are still coming in. This question is for the taxpayer advocate. Disner, someone wants to know what is considered a system issue.
The IRS system issues are those in which the IRS processes, systems, or the procedures has failed to operate as intended. For example, let's say it's a failure to file and the system is hitting them with a failure to file penalty. And once we see that, what we do is we work with the IRS to correct the issue systematically so that other taxpayers will not be impacted by these issues. So it's not just an issue just for one individual, but it could be several taxpayers that have the same issue. And what we do is we work together with IRS to try to mitigate these situations.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Disner. Thank you for that. Still have a little bit of time, and we have questions coming in. There is a question here about your tax professional. Jeff, I know you discussed some of this. The question is, should I consider using a tax professional for my business?
That's a good question. It's ultimately your decision as to whether or not you'd like to hire a tax professional to help you out, but it is very, very common. As I mentioned earlier, operating a business is time-consuming, and a lot of people choose to hire a tax professional to handle their taxes and also, in some cases, their record keeping. It's your decision, but it is definitely a common scenario. There is information on irs.gov about the different types of tax professionals that you could hire, information about what a CPA is, what an EA is, what a PTIN is, and people that have finished the annual filing season program. So you can choose an appropriate professional based on your needs. So yeah, to answer that question, I would say it's your decision, but it is common, and there is information online at irs.gov. You can search by your zip code too to find a professional in your area, and then choose a professional based on the qualifications that you're looking for, whether you're looking for a CPA or an EA or an attorney. I think answers the question, and I'll hand things over to Marcia now.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Jeff. Michelle, I hope you're still here with us because we have some questions for you. Who can help us with getting loan options for expanding our business without costing us too much?
Thank you. Yes, I'm still here. The Small Business Administration works with lenders for a wide variety of purposes. If you want a very small level loan, there are micro lenders that focus on that. They may be loans that are too small for your local bank to engage in, but we've entered into agreements with lenders who agree to work at that smaller level. There are also disaster loans that you can encounter that I think a lot of organizations know to come to us. We assist not only businesses, but homeowners whose housing is affected by disaster. And then when it comes to more advanced and larger size business loans, SBA works through banks nationwide. You can look at our website and you'll see the differences between when you might want to take advantage of our 7A loans. 504 loans tend to be more real estate and construction oriented. We also have export related loans and working capital loans. Have a look at the website and see what matches the kinds of needs that you have.
Thank you, Michelle. Exactly the type of loans that our small business needs. Thank you for that. That's all the time we have for questions. I want to thank all of our presenters, Jeffrey, Disner, Michelle, for sharing your knowledge and expertise and for answering questions, along with Robert Boland, the National Ombudsman, for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we close the question and answer session, I would like to quickly highlight a couple of items. I want to remind you that IRS has e-news for small businesses in a free electronic mail service designed to provide tax information for small business owners and self-employed individuals. Please sign up and you will receive information about important upcoming tax dates for small businesses and self-employed customers. You'll receive information on what's new for small businesses on the IRS website, reminders and tips to assist small businesses and self-employed with tax compliance issues, also IRS news releases and special IRS announcements that pertain to small businesses and self-employed customers. We also have a list of helpful publications for your small business or references that you can share with your tax advisor. All publications can be downloaded from irs.gov and is available in a PDF format. It has been a pleasure to be with you here today. On behalf of the Internal Revenue Service and our presenters, we'd like to thank you for attending today's webinar. It is important for IRS to stay connected with the small business community, stay connected with our individual taxpayers and our industry associations, along with our federal, state, and local government partners. You make our job a lot easier by sharing the information that allows for proper tax reporting. Thanks again for your time and attendance. We hope you found this information helpful.